The Colorado Rockies had a little bit of a rough 2023 season. Their record was 59 and 103 in a year that has been tough. It's been a little bit of a rough stretch for Rockies fans, especially since Nolan Arenado was traded and since Trevor Story left. It's been a bit of a rough patch. However, there's still some interesting things going on with this team, what the future looks like, what 2024 will look like, and maybe how they can improve and see some progress throughout 2024 and beyond. So let's not waste our time. I don't want to waste too much time here. Let's dive straight into this Colorado Rockies team profile. I am Derek. I am here with John. You're watching Bleacher, Brawls, and this is the Colorado Rockies team profile. First things first, let's start with the key players. I'll hand it over to you, John. So key players, obviously, you have some picks. Pick three key players of your choosing, and then give me one that you think is going to make a big impact. Expand on one of those three, on who you think is going to make a big impact.
So I don't think there's going to be a lot that can help the Rockies this season. I don't see them. They lost 100-plus games last season. In a best-case scenario, they're losing, 90 going into the season? So it's going to be really hard to figure out three players that are going to make a difference because I don't know if there's three difference makers on this team. If I'm a Rockies fan, I think my favorite players would obviously be Chris Bryant, who's not what he was when he was in Chicago, but still an okay player. Charlie Blackmon is another one who's, I think, going to make a difference. And then, if I'm looking at this correctly, it looks like Kyle Freeland is injured. So if that's the case, then I'd have to go with Cal Quantrill as the third player that could be making a difference on this team.
Yeah, it's a bit of a rough team in terms of players. For me, I do like a couple guys in their lineup. I like Nolan Jones a lot. He had a very solid year last year. Also, Ezekiel Tovar, young shortstop, 22 years old, had a decent year last year. 261 average, 19 homers, 12 stolen bases. Like for 20 guys 22 years old entering this year, that's a very solid. Those are the 2024 projections. My bad. 253 average, 15 home runs. Also swiped 11 bags. Very solid year. Could potentially grow even more. That's a guy who's interesting. But I think kind of the key for them, this guy's been key since Nolan Arenado left, is Ryan McMahon. He's very, very solid. Last year was a bit of a down year for him. Not the greatest year. 88 weighted runs created plus, down from the 95 he had in 2022. But his big thing has been the defense at third base. And replacing Arenado is hard to do, but defensively, he's done it very well. 17 defensive runs saved last year with 11 outs above average. That's elite. And then the year before was 10 defensive runs saved, 9 outs above average. And then in 2021 at third base, it was 13 defensive runs saved, 10 outs above average. So defensively, he was great. And he had second base in 2021 as well. He put up 9 defensive runs saved. Overall, defensively, he's been stellar defensively. The bat, has its hot streaks at times, but, it's probably a little bit below league average over the course of a season. But he's still just going to be 29 next year. It's going to be his age 29 season. And for a Rockies team, I'm a big defense person. I love seeing guys who are great defenders. So a guy like a Ryan McMahon, he's a guy you watch him play third base, and it just looks good. It just looks great to see guys who are great defenders play the field. I always find enjoyment in that. So I think that's something Rockies fans and baseball fans who maybe are tuning into the Rockies don't watch a lot of them, but occasionally are going to watch them. That's someone who they should tune into. Next up is their offseason moves. There's not a ton of them. You did bring up one guy in Cal Quantrill. They also did sign Dakota Hudson. They signed Jacob Stallings. There's not really a ton. They claimed Jalen Beeks off waivers. There's not really a ton for this Rockies team. So I don't know if there's one you really want to talk about. Maybe, what the direction for this team is because there wasn't really much moves this offseason.
I think the problem with the Rockies is they seem to be one of those teams without direction. They've been a basement team for years now. There's really no hope for the future. I've worked with a few people, I should say, that live in the Denver, Colorado area. And, like, yeah, they like the Rockies, but if you're going to a Rockies game, a lot of times they're going to Rockies games in order to see the opposing team. Like, oh, there's someone I want to see. Yeah, I want to go see the Dodgers. I want to go see the Mets. I want to go see the Braves. So actual Rockies fans are telling me they're not necessarily going to games to see the Rockies. That's a problem. And that's the problem with this franchise is they don't, I think they're spinning their wheels. They don't know where they're headed. So, yeah, you mentioned there's really a kind of a lack of offseason moves where the biggest acquisition, I guess in my opinion, would be Cal Quantrill. That's not a needle-making move, and that's not going to take a team that lost 100-plus games and even put them anywhere close to being a 500 team. So, to me, I think
it is rough.
It really is.
It is rough for them. That sucks, to be a fan of a team, and it's like, I'm just going to go because, Shohei Ohtani's playing for the other team, or Aaron Judge is playing for the other team, or whatnot. That can't be fun.
No, definitely not. And that's why I think for this team, the lack of offseason moves was not surprising. And I don't know what the solution is because they look like a team that still probably isn't going to be very good for the next few years. So, it's unfortunate. I do feel bad for anyone that's like a Rockies fan if they really have any true diehard fans. And this is an organization that needs to get its head out of its butt and figure out where it's headed. So, I mean, there's a saying the people running the Rockies have their heads so far up their butts that they're looking at lunch.
Yeah, it's rough. I do like the move for Cal Quantrill. It's interesting. I mean, you never really know how the stuff is going to play in Colorado. That's always a thing with pitchers. It's like, okay, how's the stuff going to play? Because it does play different with the elevation, right? Same thing with the Dakota Hudson, but those are two guys, both of them, so I kind of group them together in this. They're both guys who have had success before in the big leagues. Dakota Hudson in 2019, it was his age 24 season, 32 starts, 174 innings, a 3.35 ERA, was the FIP high, yes, 4.93. That is a very high FIP. But, there's still success there, right? 2020, it was, he made 8 starts, 2.77 ERA, still a high FIP, but, and even in 2022, it's a 4.45 ERA, not great, but it's around league average. That's basically league average. League average is it's not terrible for the Rockies. You take a flyer on them, right? Maybe you find success. Cal Quantrill, you look at his career. You look at the 2022 year, 32 starts, a 3.38 ERA, 4.12 FIP, and even in 2021 with Cleveland, 22 starts, 40 appearances. So he made 18 appearances out of the pen, but 150 innings basically with a 2.89 ERA. Both of them have had success in the big leagues before. So, those could be, nice little sleeper pickups. They're going to get the chance to play in Colorado. So maybe that could turn into, some deadline bait for other teams, and Rockies could maybe get something out of those guys. But, outside of that, there's not a ton to be excited outside of, the young players, like Ezekiel Tovar, the other young shortstop in the minor leagues. I struggle with his name all the time. I think it's Adael Amador, I think that's how you pronounce it. But he's young. He's 20. Hasn't even turned 21 yet, and he finished last year in Double-A. You have Zach Veen, who's was another great draft pick, and they have the third pick in the draft this upcoming year. So for Rockies fans, at least they have that to look forward to, and I'll use that kind of to segue into expectations because it's this is a team where it's they are a little bit directionless at the big league level. They do have some nice young talent. What are they going to do with that talent? I don't really know. But, what should the expectations be? Should it just be to, hope for the young guys and the prospects and maybe a breakout season from someone and hope the team's not terrible? Or should it just kind of be eyes on the minor leagues?
I think it's going to be eyes on the minor leagues. And even then, there's still some concern with me. Because this is a team that struggles. Their expectations are what? To not lose 100 games again? But that could very well happen. They could be back-to-back 100-game loss seasons. Maybe they lost 100 games even the year before that. I don't even know. You can hope. I think you could. You're going to try to sell. If you're the Rockies ownership, you're going to try to sell the future because that's all you have. You're going to try to sell the minor league talent. The problem is always going to be, can you develop that talent? And the Rockies really haven't shown an ability to do anything right. So, sure, you have all this young talent, but baseball's a hard game, and it's a very mental game. And if you're putting these young players in a losing situation right from the start with low expectations, you can't guarantee success. You don't know if they're really going to develop the way they should. So that's concerning as well. I don't really know. I mean, their goal should be to not lose 100 games, and that's really sad that that's what your goal is going to the season. It's not to be a 500 team. It's not to show improvement. It's to not lose 100 games. And this is a really poorly run organization that needs to figure things out.
Yeah, it is rough. I do want to also add into the fact of I do think having a winning culture always helps. Like I've said this with the Red Sox so many times throughout this kind of rebuild thing the Red Sox are doing, and Joey hates me for it, but winning at the minor leagues still doesn't, it does matter in some sense, because you don't want guys to lose constantly in the minor leagues, and then they get to the big leagues, and then they lose even more. Like, if you're the Rockies, you need to try and build a winning culture, and it kind of has to start at the minor leagues at this point, because it's not going to happen in the big leagues right now. And that's why, I do think winning in the minor leagues is important. Is it, the end-all, be-all? No. At the end of it, you want player development, but, winning helps player development. It helps build culture. You don't want everyone to lose and be all down in the dumps all the time. So I think that's it's kind of focused on the minor leagues. Hope to build a winning culture there. But I think that's kind of a decent spot to kind of wrap it up. Hopefully they do build that winning culture. So Rockies fans, let us know your thoughts in the comments on your team entering 2024. And yeah, for John, my name is Derek. Thanks for tuning in to Bleacher Brawls. Check out all our other team profiles, and we will see you next time.